going places to get before.
Okay, there we go. People started to show up.
Hello guys, there you go. Josué is there. Nice.
Yeah, 7:01 on time, almost.
Yeah, it's we actually started 7. You guys are late.
Yeah, they were sleeping basically.
Hello Marcus. Well, here in Doha now, 7 p.m. As we mentioned, 4 o'clock, around 4 o'clock UTC time, and back in Brazil 1 p.m. So now we are here with Odai, who's a flight instructor here in Qatar, and he's been flying general aviation here in the Middle East, which is something that we don't see much in my channel at least. But on his channel, you should really check it out. You really should follow him, because he shows a lot of these his view of how it is to fly light aircraft here in the Middle East. And Odai, please introduce yourself so people can know you better, and then I'll introduce myself to your followers.
Okay, no problem. Hello everybody. 7 a.m. in Doha. 7 a.m. 7 p.m. This is how
it's too dark in here for 7 a.m.
So I'm Udai. I have been flying general aviation here in the Middle East for the past, I believe, 8 years. Flying ferry flights, flight instructor, and doing as well some discovery flying here, and some solo flying. Single pilot, which is we're gonna talk about later. Flew in Jordan, flew in the States, flew in Turkey, flew in Saudi Arabia, and now here in Qatar. And did a few ferry flights from Europe to Doha, and also some flights from Doha all the way to Europe, back to Doha with the Diamond 62, which is a twin multi-engine airplane piston.
Very nice multi-engine, by the way.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But it's not as nice as the heavy plastic.
My twin, yeah, my heavy plastic.
Yes.
It's also twin. Well, for the Odai followers that don't know me, well, my name is Enderson. I'm from Brazil. I started with in the airlines back in 2005 as a flight attendant, and then in 2012 I went to the US, did my whole training, basic training, right? Private and commercial, multi, IFR, all this stuff. Got back to Brazil, started flying the airlines there in the 737, flew the 737 for 3 years, and then I came here to Qatar, and I'm flying here the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, mostly to Europe, Asia, Africa, and here in the Middle East. And someone came up with a drill.
Yeah,
exactly at the point I started to fly, because these things happen.
It was so quiet before, it was so chill, but then he just decided to drill. I don't know if you guys can hear us or no.
Yeah, someone just say, oh, you can hear well or not. But, I mean, at some point, whoever is drilling is going to stop.
Yeah, but anybody can hear, everything is good, okay, I mean, or no?
Is it good?
Answer.
All right. So
okay.
Let's start then. We have it's wet already, man.
Yes.
We have here some subjects that we want to cover tonight. Some of them are operational. Mm-hmm. Some of them are about the differences in lifestyle. As you guys saw before, the subject of this live is going to be the differences between the general aviation and the airlines. How do they compare, and what things are the same, what things are different? And we were going to talk about this tonight. And we have, of course, my friend Odai here, which is going to be a very, very good host for our talk.
Come on, what about you? You should be a host as well.
Okay, we have two hosts then.
Yes.
All right. So first, starting with the of course, if you guys have Aloha, yeah, Pupin, you are in Hawaii that I know, man. He has gone to Hawaii on the 787, of course.
Okay.
And
awesome.
I'm sure he's having a very great time.
Pilot there?
No, but he loves aviation, and he's Brazilian. So he's a physician actually. So we are gonna talk first about some operational differences, and about flying general aviation and flying in the airlines. The first major thing that you should keep in mind is that you should first, in the general aviation, you will fly single pilot, and in the airlines you're gonna fly multi-crew. So when you do your training in the light aircraft, usually you train to be a single pilot. You train to be a pilot in command. See? And then, as you progress to the airlines, you just do three things. You eat, sleep, and fly. So that's basically the differences. João Vitor Balduino is a great friend of mine, and I'm sure he's very interested. He's finishing his training soon. Inshallah, he is going to be in the airlines also.
Inshallah. Okay, so one thing I need to comment is the difference between some people might not know what is single pilot is and what is multi-crew is. A single pilot means that it is you who you are alone inside the airplane. You are the guy who's making the decisions. There is nobody next to you to help you to make the decision or to discuss how to make the decision with you. So you really need to know what you are doing, and you need to have the mindset to calculate or to get all the incomes from your surrounding environment, like the weather, the fuel, and everything, and then make a decision based on that. Multi-crew, you are trained to share your decision with the other pilot next to you. Actually, there's a course called the CRM and the MCC,
Exactly.
where you have to know how to make your decisions or how to share and how to communicate with the pilot next to you. So when you want to make a decision, you should be able to communicate that decision, the right information, the correct information to the other pilot, and then based on that, you make your decision. So this is the difference between single pilot and multi-crew. And to be honest, flying as a single pilot is much more hazardous than flying as a multi-crew.
Definitely, it's much more challenging.
Because this is where I had a friend of mine. I was flying with him back in Saudi Arabia. He's flying now for the regionals in the States. He told me that the real decision-making territory is the single pilot flying, because there's nobody there basically except you. You are the person who flies the airplane.
To do your own CRM, and that aviate, navigate, communicate thing becomes even more important when you are flying alone, for sure. So, but on the other hand, of course, it's a very good experience as long as you don't have a heart attack or something like that, because you're single and then nobody's gonna land the airplane for you. But if everything runs well, it's a very good experience to fly solo, and it's a very important part of your basic training, because nobody learns to take decisions with the CF9X, right? Because you have someone more experienced than you to take decisions for you. So if you are flying alone, you're gonna do the mistakes, you're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. There's no problem in doing the mistakes. Things that you have to learn from those mistakes so you don't do them again. So, and this opportunity, you only have this opportunity really if you fly solo at some point of your training. Of course, you're gonna have a training with your instructor before, and then when he feels like you are not killing yourself anymore, then he's gonna let you.
And use the checklist. Use the checklist.
Yeah, even more. Yeah, don't try to assume that you already did something. Marcel Sport doesn't say, yesterday I was reading a text that did you write about the Bonanza, and it made me fear. I don't remember that one. If you could remind me, I don't remember what text was.
Probably the Bonanza history.
No, I didn't know anything
Beechcraft.
about the Bonanza. Well, I don't remember this one. Let's see here. What effective VHF transmission signal? Push to talk button on Thunder or altitude? Yeah, when you have a bad weather, it doesn't help, of course. But usually, if you have actually sandstorm, actually, that would be very bad to your radio transmissions. But usually in VHF we don't have many problems. VHF usually are very reliable, and the quality of the sound is good.
And you also have the static wicks, and you have the dischargers and everything. And this is something that for the old airplanes, when they tell you switch your mobile phones off and everything, it affects the instruments of the airplane.
Not that much. Yeah, so it's not big issue. And of course, if you lose your communication, what do you do? Transponder 7600. Call the tower. Nowadays we have lots of
we had Wi-Fi
resources.
on board airplanes.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I heard a story about a guy who lost his VHF in flight. He did the squawk and everything, And the guy was smart. He was like really smart. He called the tower. He had the tower phone number in his mobile phone, and he wasn't like 1,500 feet. He had reception in his phone.
Sure.
He called the tower. Hey guys, I'm so and so airplane. I have a radio failure. I'm coming in. They know. It's awesome.
Yeah, much better than relying on those lasers, right? And by the way, another thing that I used to do, I used to have this handheld radio. So if you have a problem with the airplane radio, you still have your own radio, so you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I remember that who was that?
Yes.
Marcel. He was speaking about an article I wrote about light twins back in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you lose an engine, you don't lose, like many people have this wrong idea that, okay, I have two engines, I lost one engine, then I lost 50% of my performance. But no, actually you lost like 80 something
Yes.
percent. So it's about that. And well, you don't have to be afraid as long as you are trained. Of course, twins are much safer than singles because you have more options. So in a single engine airplane, if you lose an engine, you already flying down somewhere, and you're gonna have to figure out where you're gonna land. If you lose one engine in a twin, first of all, most of them are capable of keeping some altitude, and even when they are not, they're gonna descend in a very shallow way. So
Yes.
you're gonna have enough time to find a good place to land. And of course, losing an engine, specifically in a non-fly-by-wire aircraft, is a very critical maneuver, but it's well trained because it's critical. It's really well trained. The training is very focused on that, and so any multi-engine pilot should be able
Yes.
to.
I'm just gonna answer Guy here. He asked
Okay.
if they can put the questions. Yeah, you can ask,
Sure, of
but
course.
then later, when we have the time, we will come back to your question. I just want to put an emphasis on one thing. If you have a single engine failure in a single engine airplane, he said a golden word here. You fly down. You don't fall like a rock.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is like a wrong perception that most people have. Like,
people think that
Yes.
even in a single engine. Right?
yeah. I mean, if I
It's an
lose
airplane.
engine,
It's not a helicopter. Helicopters go all the way down, and even they have a resource, which is the alto stuff. Anyways, people who fly a helicopter, they know about that. But the airplanes, they are still, before being airplanes, they are kind of sailplanes, right? They are
Yes.
not gonna fall like a rock.
the Azores Island, do you remember that incident?
Yeah, A330.
Air Transit, yeah,
Yeah.
330.
A330.
They
Air
lost
Transit.
both engines at I think
It was
33.
it was very far away. It's like-
Yeah, and they glided 200 nautical miles or 150.
for over 20 minutes. I don't remember now how much. And so you have a lot of resources. We have a lot of crashes, or even actually not. We would not even call them crashes because everybody was saved. But we had a lot of forced landings because multi-engine aircraft lost all their fuel, because this is usually the more common reason for you to lose both engines, is because
Hudson
you ran
River.
out of Hudson River because of birds. And now with this Russian guy there with the 321, did an excellent job, although he was very low in hours, which is something that is very interesting too, because we've seen Sullenberg saying, because I'm like 50,000 hours, but the guy was 3,000 hours and did an amazing job. So it's not only about the hours, it's much more about your training, about your airmanship, and how do you deal with the critical
There is a
situation.
guy called Rob Machado. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Rob Machado, he's a CFI.
Yeah.
He says something like, if you have an emergency or something like that, you should always just fly the airplane. Just whatever happens, just fly it. You have two engine failures, airplane still in the air. Descending, okay, fine, we understand that. But you can still fly the airplane down, like to whatever
still have
suitable
control,
situation,
yeah. You
to
still have
land.
control.
And that's it. So the next topic, we're gonna talk here about performance and flight planning between general aviation pilots and airline pilots. So for flight planning purposes and everything, in the Middle East, flight planning and performance is a headache, I would say.
For everyone.
And also I would say in some parts of the world it differs. It differs how much people are used to civil aviation and everything and general aviation. Because when I say general aviation, I'm talking about private aviation, medevac, small airplanes, anything which is not airline is general aviation, anything. So let's go with the flight planning. Flight planning, usually me as a general aviation pilot, actually this is gonna cover like 1, 2, 3 in one. because
Okay,
of flight
yeah,
planning,
good.
yeah.
Then we come back with the airline
Yes.
perspective.
Yes. So for flight planning, me as a general aviation pilot, I have to do it myself. There is nobody doing this for me. So before like a day or just before 2 hours or whatever before my flight, I go there, I do my flight plan, I calculate where I'm gonna go, what I'm gonna do, which points I'm gonna fly over. It depends on the type of the flight. Am I gonna fly visual or am I gonna fly in reference to my flight instruments? And then I will have to calculate how much fuel I need for this, and to make myself legal, how much extra fuel I need to carry as well. And then also the time comes with the flight plan and the distance and everything. And basically in general aviation, the pilot is the responsible guy about all of this. And he is doing it by himself. He is checking it by himself. Nobody's there to check it for him. And if he screws up with something, then I'm sorry. But nowadays we have beautiful technology. We have the G1000 flight decks, which is awesome. And most of the time we fly our airplanes full fuel, and we know the capability of our airplanes. It is not like airlines. An airline's part, he will tell you about the fuel and everything. For us in general aviation, we do love to fly with full tanks. Absolutely love.
Much easier, right?
Yes, even if we fly like an hour flight, we just love to have a full tank there. Although we can do the calculation and everything, but just for safety, especially in the Middle East. You never know when the weather is going to turn over. You never know when you're going to have a sandstorm coming up from nowhere. Or CB, cumulonimbus clouds, or a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
Especially at these days here in the Middle East. Because some people don't understand the perception how Middle East weather change like this.
And people, they think that we don't have even rain here, and actually it had rain today here.
Yeah. So this is one thing. And then we know the range of our airplanes. We have to know our airplanes by heart, which is the same thing for the airline. So we know that whatever numbers are in the books, we have to subtract 30% at least. Like, for example, my airplane flies 1,000 nautical miles. I'm not going to consider 1,000 nautical miles for my airplane. I'm going to consider 700 nautical miles for airplane. The 300 off the window. Easy. Just for safety. And so many topics. I'm going to go and throw the ball here so he can talk more.
All right, so I have a question back to you. How long it takes for you to get the flight plan filed, all the performance calculated, all the weight and balance done? How long does it take to you? Being like a quick
person
on that.
I would say 40 minutes tops.
Right? 40 minutes. Imagine in the airlines if you had to spend, let's say, 1 hour on that every flight. All the flights in the world would be delayed, right? So that's why we get someone else to get it to get it done for us. So the only thing we do, we take a look, we review the flight plan, we review the weight imbalance, we reviewed all the load sheets, all those things. Some things are really we just know by the end of the flight. So some data about the weights of, for example, we just get like 5 or 10 minutes before we start the engine. So that's when we put it on our performance calculations, and then it depends on the type that you're flying. But most of them, you have like a book where you're gonna check the conditions and the runway and the configuration of the aircraft, and gonna cross-check all that, and that's gonna give you the speeds you're gonna use. Or you use an onboard performance tool, as we do, that you put all the information there in this software, and the software calculates for you your performance, and that's the performance you're going to use. Of course, there's a lot of cross checks, so we don't do it wrong, because it's a really critical stuff we have to do, and it's something that we really have to dedicate ourselves to do right in the first time. The system itself is already kind of conservative. So, for example, if you're using a wet runway, it's going to give you a lower view one, so you have more time to stop and more runway to stop, right? And it's very precise in a way, like usually we don't take off, for example, with full power. In general aviation, if you usually take off with full power,
Always,
right?
always.
In airlines, really, really rare. Like 90% of the time, you're gonna take off with less power than full. So if you need an extra power, you have it. So and all this kind of stuff is not done only because we can, but it's also actually to save the engine itself, right? Because imagine if you were using the engines all the way up to full power every takeoff, the engine would last much less. So all these things are for safety. Another thing, for example, if you lose an engine on takeoff and you are using full power, your power asymmetry is going to be much higher, right? So it's going to be much more difficult to control the aircraft. So if you're using like a derate or a assumed temperature method where you're using less power and you lose an engine, first, you already are covering the least amount of power you need to take off, so you're safe anyways. And second, since you're using less power, you're going to have less asymmetry, and it's going to be easier to control the aircraft. So these are some things that are different from light aircraft. And also, as he mentioned before about the fuel, usually in light aircraft you take off with full tanks, so you have the whole whole range or whole endurance of the airplane. And in the airlines, since we usually have a very big difference between our maximum takeoff weight here and our maximum landing weight, then we cannot take off with full tanks most of the time, because if you do that, by the time you are going to land, you're going to be over your maximum landing weight. So you have to have at least, this is usually your lower limitation, you have to have at least the quantity of fuel that allows you to land below your maximum landing weight. But more than that, we use another stuff. We use usually fuel from A to B, and then as we get in B, we have enough fuel to go to C. And then after we get in C, we have enough fuel to hold for another 30 minutes, plus some contingency fuel. So usually we fly like, let's say a 6-hour flight, you're gonna have around 7 hours and 38 hours of endurance. So you have all the fuel you need to do the sector you're gonna do, plus an extra to go to an alternate, plus another extra. So that's how we do. So we don't go with full tanks. Imagine in the 787 we can carry 100 tons of fuel. So it doesn't make much sense if you're flying 6 or 5 hours where you're going to use about
You will carry
30,
less
40, 50, yeah, exactly. Plus this, if you have a full tank, most of the aircraft are not able to have a full tank and a full load at the same time, because for example in the 787-8 we have a maximum zero fuel weight of 161. Roughly it's more than that, it's like 25 kilos more than that, but anyways, 1621. So imagine if we have a full load and then we are 161, and then we have full fuel, it's gonna be 161 plus 100, which is 261, and our maximum takeoff weight is 227.
It's amazing, the numbers.
So we have like 40 tons less, So in the end, with a full load, we would fly something like around 13 hours, 14 hours maybe. But if you have a full tank and not a full load, then you could fly almost 20 hours.
His numbers are amazing, because my numbers are like, what is the maximum takeoff weight you have?
227,930.
Tons.
Yeah, no, 227,930 kilos.
Okay, for us,
Yeah, 27 tons.
it's like how much fuel you use per hour? Like
4
gallons.
tons. No, in gallons I don't know.
4 tons.
4
So
tons.
basically, he burns the same, like 4 tons. My maximum takeoff weight is actually 4 tons. So he burns me an hour. Imagine this, like.
Yeah, but you carry 4 people, I carry, or 6 maybe
in this Diamond 62, we carry 7.
Well, 7. It's
7.
an amazing aircraft. You guys should really Google it. It's
Yes,
one of the most amazing.
Diamond 62.
It's one of the most amazing twins out there. Well, the 787 we can carry up to, depends on the configuration, of course. In the Dash 8 that we have here, we fly with 254 passengers plus 12 crew. But if you fly the Dash 10, you can carry up to 350 passengers. So it's a big airplane. It's a big airplane.
You can see the differences here, because as he said, that they have the dispatcher, they have the softwares, they have everything for them, and because the numbers that they are talking about is like huge numbers, and you have an airline environment, you should be
time, right? A short time to
on
work.
time and everything, and you have to deal with crew, ground handling,
Exactly.
and all of
the
these
whole
people.
system around you, you know.
And you as a pilot, you should orchestrate all of this.
I mean, every time we push back on time, I'm amazed. Like, how can we do this? Because we have so many things to deal with that started like 3-4 hours before, and now we are pushing back in time. Isn't this amazing? Because all this system converged to that point where we push back in time. This is beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Oh, if you can
The
turn it on,
AC,
yeah.
the
Because
AC,
you know, guys,
can you turn it
it's
on?
summer is over, but it's still kind of warm here. Like
Yeah.
what's today? 30 something?
32.
32
degrees
yeah.
Celsius.
Exactly.
And we are October
October. Yeah.
17th. October 17th, 32 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But it's gonna be much better next 6 months. Best weather ever.
Ever.
Like 20 degrees, 25 degrees for 6 months. It's beautiful.
And during the night, it can be like 10 degrees Celsius.
Exactly. We can get some even
And
below 10. Right?
this will push us to our topic now, which is performance. In an amazing way. Like now, our airplanes, the general aviation airplanes, now you have gotten a perception about the idea of the weight and the numbers that we are talking about. Now imagine 4 tons airplane, how it gets affected by temperature, because after all, engine does breathe exactly like a human being. And we have the hot weather. In the hot weather, we have less amount of oxygen or oxygen molecules in the air. So we all know the mechanics, and that engines, when they want to burn or when they want to run, they need to mix fuel and air together in order to have this explosion and power to run the engine.
Exactly.
So if you have less oxygen in the air,
You'll
you'll
have less power.
you'll have less power. So
Plus the whole air, right? The whole
Yes.
air is less dense, so you have less power because you have less oxygen, and you have less power because the air is not as dense. So you cannot, even when you compress that air and push it back to the air to the back of the airplane to make the airplane move forward. You see, there's an airplane there.
that's a 787, I think.
No, it's not a 350.
A 350, yeah.
Airbus A350.
Real app geeks here.
So as you have less dense air to pull the airplane forward, then you're gonna need an extra power to compensate for that. So at some point you get to the limit, and even that's why we have very long runways.
Yes.
Because we need all those long runways to take off when it's really, really hot. Today it's like 32 is easy. But when it's like 40 something, then it's
Yeah, believe me, some
really
people
weird.
when they hear 32 degrees for performance calculation, they're like still surprised and shocked by that. And usually it is very noticeable here in this area. We had an airport, but now it is no more. It's Alcor Airport. It's 1,500 kilometers runway. In the summer, in a Piper Archer,
1,500 meters.
1,500 meters.
Yeah.
Yes, 1,500 meters. Sorry.
It's going all the way to the rear end, you know. It's in the other side of the
Yes.
Gulf.
So 1,500 meters, and in the summer, in a Piper Archer, is a single engine airplane, which is like around 2 tons of weight, almost maximum takeoff. We use half of this runway to take off.
Which is
Half of this
And
runway.
after you get airborne, you probably don't.
We
get
do
the fall as
like
much, right?
we do like sometimes around 500 feet per minute climb, 700
You know what?
feet. Yeah.
That's a 787 single engine taking off. If you lose an engine on takeoff, it's gonna take you on this heat. It's gonna take you around 500 feet per minute to climb,
Yes.
which is crazy because it gets you 2 minutes to get to.
And how
2 or
many
3
pounds of
minutes
thrust do you have, man?
to get 70,000 pounds.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
Which is a lot, considerable a lot of amount
Yeah,
of
it's
thrust.
like something around, if I'm not mistaken, something around 400 times the Piper.
Yes.
Because it's difficult to compare because it's different units.
Yes.
You know, to
We have
pounds of
horsepower.
exactly, pounds of thrust with horsepower is hard to compare them, but it's roughly 400 times.
And so imagine 40 single engine airplanes. If we attach them all together with the engines, I'm not talking about the airplane, the engines, 40 engines of these small airplanes, this is how much one engine of the 787 is producing thrust. Amazing. So this is the difference in performance. And when we talk about performance, we also talk here about speed. Our speed is slow that we can sometimes have much more time to take decisions when we have such an emergencies. Okay, we don't have much time. Sometimes we have to make decisions in seconds. But in an airline environment, everything happens like this. For example, my takeoff speed is around roughly 65 knots. So if I want to reject a takeoff, if I want to do something, if I have, from the time I put full power until the time I reach that 65, I have like 30 seconds, 20 seconds maximum until I hit the takeoff speed and I rotate. His takeoff speeds can reach sometimes up to 140, 170, up to his load.
Yeah.
So their decision making, the response because of the performance of the airplane is relatively quicker.
Yeah, it takes us pretty much the same time to get to that speed, but of course our acceleration is much harder, much faster, and that's why we have this threshold, very important threshold of 80 knots. Below 80 knots, it's considered a low energy reject if you need to reject takeoff. After 80 knots is considered a high energy reject, because below 80 knots you are not fast enough. So I mean, if you have to stop, your brakes are not get hot and everything. But above 80 knots, your brakes are gonna get hot, and even as you get closer to your V1, then you're not gonna have much runway. Depending on the runway you're taking off, you're not gonna have much runway available to stop. So all these things are considered, and after you reach V1, actually, you don't reject the takeoff anymore. You take off. You're committed to fly, because it's safer to fly with some kind of major failures after V1 than would be stopping. So after V1, we're gonna take off anyways, work the troubleshoot the problem we have, and go and come back. That's how it's gonna happen. In the light aircraft, well, you don't really have a V1.
No,
you actually rotate, and if you have enough runway in front of you and you have a problem, you land again. Or if you don't, then you have to find another way.
Yeah,
and this is all covered in the briefing.
In
right?
the briefing, yeah. For example, when we do brief, for example, we say, okay, if we have an engine failure before our rotation speed, there is no V1, as he said. It's only rotation speed, and that's it. Before our rotation speed, we just close down the power, try to maintain the center line, and just vacate the runway. We don't take off if we have and in a single engine airplane or multi-engine airplane, what really could happen that make us reject takeoff before VR, which is the speed of rotation, is a fire, engine failure. It's not like the airline environment. In the airline environment, there's tons of things that you can reject and you cannot reject the takeoff for. And then if we have an engine failure or any kind of
fire
problem,
and engine failure are among them.
Yes. If we have an engine problem or whatever, and we have runway remaining ahead, we land straight ahead. That's it. Because we are light airplane, we can stop within the remaining runway, whatever distance it is. Of course, not if there is only 50 meters remaining, I land ahead. No, does not make sense.
Yeah.
But when I say remaining runway, is based on the pilot judgment here. If he thinks that the runway remaining for him is good enough for him to land, then go ahead and land. If it is not, and he has enough power and he has enough engine, he can just take off and do a traffic pattern around the airport and land straight ahead. Then he can do that for sure. And then we have, if we completely lose the power, it's gonna be the same here and there. If we completely lose both engines or whatever engines, it's gonna be completely the same. Don't make any turns unless it is really necessary to avoid obstructions, because if we make a turn to the right or to the left, we're gonna lose left. It's an aerodynamic thing. Oh,
No,
what is that? 320. So if we lose both engines, then we have to, or one engine, we have to land straight ahead or in a suitable area. If we really need to make a turn, then we have to make the turn. And it's pilot judgment as well, and that's it. So this guy he's just trying his bill.
All the noises are,
just
around.
coming now. Yes. We don't mind airplane noise, and you can see them in the background actually, which
it's
is
nice.
Okay.
Pato One Whisk is called this.
Pato One, beside
he's
departing the guy?
Yeah, he's departing to Europe probably.
Yes, that wave of Europe now. Okay, so we finished the performance, and now we're gonna go to the most interesting topic.
Mhm.
What is the difference
Between hand
of
fly?
flying?
Oh.
I know you will hate me. I know you will hate me with this.
No. It's actually what I came up with here is that one of the subjects is this about hand flying and managing the flight, right? Well, of course, both flights have to be managed, both general aviation and airline flight. But of course, the airline environment is much more complex. So that's why we have two people just to start with to deal with it. And secondly, of course, we spend much more time managing because our systems are such that they kind of they can take care of the flight most of the time while we are managing. So we don't have much time to hand fly. We don't hand fly much, and this is something that every pilot, when they get to the airlines, they miss a lot. Of course, we pretty much fly probably 1 or 2 or maybe 3 minutes per day when we fly. So that's what I find taxiing very, very nice because we can do we do that manually. And actually, they're studying now to make that automatic too. So yeah, that's sad. Yeah,
how did they make
Embraer is doing. I don't know.
The E2. Which
no, the
airplane?
E2. I think they're just studying, just researching.
Okay.
But anyways, they're gonna take out one of the nicest things that are still left, which is taxiing. But so this is a big difference. When you fly in the light aircraft, you hand fly much more. Not that they don't have autopilots, because they do, but the autopilots they have is less complex, and the environment itself calls for a more hand flying.
So basically, because when we speak about general aviation, a lot of people refer to the flight training and everything. Yes, during flight training, we prefer the student not to use the automation much.
Sure.
We prefer the student to hand fly the airplane. So this is why we get a lot of hand flying during the training or in general aviation, etc. Because in airlines, there is a lot of factors, in between them the safety and the comfort of the passengers, and also not exceeding the airplane limitations and stuff like that. So, for example, imagine that you are flying Boeing 787. You just departed from, let's say, what airport has a lot of updrafts, downdrafts, and you think...
Here.
Okay.
In the summer?
In the summer.
Yeah,
so
like wake turbulence, all the stuff.
So you depart from a relatively hot weather airport. You will have a lot of turbulence and everything. You are flying manual. All of a sudden, the airplane might bang to the right, bang to the left, or have a sudden pitch up, sudden pitch down. You might not be able to recognize what's going on as fast as the autopilot can recover from the situation. And then we have the general aviation. On the other hand, we try to avoid these hot weathers. We don't fly at the temperatures that they fly. For example, we have a limitation. This is back to the performance. 39 degrees Celsius, we stop all operation. We don't take off, we don't land, we don't do anything, or as per specified in the airplane manual. Airplanes, they come with manuals. Even his airplane.
No, much more.
Yeah, much more than a manual.
Many manuals.
Many manuals.
Many manuals.
My airplanes, they come only with one manual. His planes comes with many manuals.
5, 7.
5, 7 manuals. A lot of studying
40,000 pages at least.
A lot of studying, guys. So, hand flying is something that I really enjoy, to be honest. I really love. At some point, of course, I have to move to this side here, in the business, the airline, and then I will start. As much as he misses the hand flying, I'm gonna miss it as well. But that does not mean that the airline pilots, or in any part of the world, they cannot just go and rent an airplane or whatever just to sharpen their skills.
Sure.
Because you're flying manual, all of a sudden the airplane might bang to the right, bang to the left, or have a sudden pitch up, sudden pitch down. You might not be able to recognize what's going on as fast as the autopilot can recover from the situation. And then we have the general aviation. On the other hand, we try to avoid these hot weathers. We don't fly at the temperatures that they fly. For example, we have a limitation. This is back to the performance. 39 degrees Celsius, we stop all operation. We don't take off, we don't land, we don't do anything, or as per specified in the airplane manual. Airplanes, they come with manuals. Even his airplane.
No, much more.
Yeah, much more than a manual.
Many minutes.
Many manuals.
Many minutes.
My airplanes, they come only with one manual. His planes comes with many manuals.
5, 7.
5, 7 manuals, a lot of studying here.
40,000 pages at least.
A lot of studying, guys. So, hand flying is something that I really enjoy, to be honest. I really love. At some point, of course, I have to move to this side here, in the business, the airline, and then I will start. As much as he misses the hand flying, I'm gonna miss it as well.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that the airline pilots, or in any part of the world, they cannot just go and rent an airplane or whatever just to sharpen their skills.
Sure.
Because, for example, Air France, the one that crashed in the ocean, was flying from Rio
to Paris.
to Paris. After that crash, the airline started putting more emphasis on the airline pilots to hand fly the airlines, because they started thinking that, okay, airline pilots are much more dependent now on the automation, and they're losing the hand flying skills. They need to sharpen it up, so they should fly more manual. That's how it goes, basically.
And of course, it's not that we don't hand fly, that we cannot hand fly. We can and we do, but certainly less than we would like to, because it's a very limited policy on that. Just to answer this question from Marcelo, the landing distance change when there are engine problems. Well, that's not a big thing for landing. Usually the landing distance is the same with one engine. What would change is because probably you're gonna land with less flap. So if you're landing with less flap, you're landing faster, and then your distance is gonna be bigger. But usually what gives us trouble with landing distance is something related to the flaps or slats. Those are much more limited, plus the brakes too. If we don't have auto brakes, or if the brakes have any kind of big trouble with the brakes specifically, that are things that would require us a much bigger landing distance.
Okay, so there's a question.
Flight plan must be amended in flight. When? True speed changed by 5%. Now you don't have to amend the flight plan, but if your speed changed by more than 5% to the speed in which you were assigned to you by the ATC, then you have to tell ATC. That's it. When the aircraft go off track, lastly, when the aircraft deviates from its assigned altitude, exactly all these things you have to talk to ATC. The ATCs take care of you. If you know you need to do a deviation because of weather, you ask them, and of course. Since the safety of the airplane is the most important thing here, if you are not able to talk to them, you do it anyways. But
so there's a question: is it right that American and German pilots are the best pilots in the world? Okay, stereotype.
You know what the best pilots in the world? The humans.
Yeah, because basically it's up to you.
Exactly.
So
you have very bad pilots and very good pilots everywhere.
There's something which is I always tell my students or other pilots that they are starting to learn now.
Exactly.
Which is one thing. You have two types of pilots. You have a monkey stick and you have a pilot. Now, when I say a monkey stick, is like, okay, for God's sake, NASA just brought a monkey and it was actually there, and he was actually flying a spaceship. How hard it is to teach a monkey to fly an airplane?
The difference is like if you teach, I would say that if it takes you 20 sessions of simulator to teach a human, it's gonna take you 100 sessions to teach a monkey. But both are gonna get some level of proficiency.
Yes.
Of course, the big difference here is in the management. But I mean, any kind of because this nationality, these whatever, it doesn't make sense at all.
A good pilot is a thinking pilot, a decision maker, and a reading pilot.
Reading pilot. And a safety-driven pilot.
Yes.
More than anything.
Yes.
Because if you are not safe, you are not going to live enough to be a.
So this answers which best pilots. He's Brazilian. I'm Jordanian.
And we are both bad pilots, so it doesn't mean anything.
No, I will tell you one thing. How long you been flying for?
6 years. Yeah.
6 years.
I don't know now. 6, 7 years.
7 years.
Like that, yeah.
I've been flying for almost 12, and we are still alive, which means that we are good at what we are doing. Yeah. So you see, there's no difference here in there's different nationalities, but we're both. Yeah. We do what we do. That's it.
Yeah. Let's go to the next heavy jets and light aircraft characteristics. Well, I would say the most thing different between light aircraft and heavy aircraft is the inertia. So it takes you have 200 tons, let's say. It takes you much more to accelerate and to decelerate 200 tons than it would take you to do that with 1 ton, right? And that's the big thing about big aircraft and small aircraft characteristics. Plus, in most of the big aircraft nowadays, we have fly-by-wire systems, which is a way that to make it really simple, all the commands you do go to a computer. The computer kind of filter it, and then it releases to the surfaces that control the aircraft. So the aircraft flies in a safer and a more comfortable way, let's say. So that's the big difference that you have for small aircraft, including some airliners, that they don't have fly-by-wire. So it's whatever you do is whatever you give the airplane, and it's how the airplane is gonna behave. Do you want to add something to that?
Nothing. Basically, he says it's inertia, it's energy, it's how much power I have. I mean, the best airplane as let's say piston engine airplane, we can have like what, 300 horsepower, whatever.
I don't know.
500 horsepower.
Maybe.
Yes. So, and it's engine, it's power, it's how heavy it is, it's inertia, it's Newton laws in action. There we go.
And then all its speech and power and
yes.
Halas.
Halas. Whoever lives in the Middle East knows. Halas.
What is this, bros? Now we're gonna. Well, we're here now, 15 minutes from the end of this live. All right. So we're gonna start speaking about some differences. What's the?
There's a lot of questions.
Okay, let's go with the questions. Go ahead.
That you have a flight. Let's say you have a flight to Baghdad.
Okay, but co-pilot got sick and took him to hospital. They will fly someone there to fly the aircraft back.
Okay. So his question was basically is if someone flew to another airport and then the other pilot got sick, yeah, they will send another pilot to fly the airplane.
Yeah.
What is the difference between
APU and non-APU airplanes like? Well, the 320 has APU, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's what you are asking, because some maybe if you were talking about fuel jettison, some smaller narrow jets, they don't have fuel jettison capability. But about APU and non-APU, well, the good thing about APU is that you can start your engines using bleed air. For example, for the aircraft that use bleed air, the 787 doesn't. But we need a lot of electrical power to start the engines, and it comes from the APU. But if you have a ground source of power, then you use that.
An awesome question from an awesome. You were a 737 pilot.
Yeah.
Read this.
Your thoughts of the 737 delay impact. Well, we have big impact on that. Of course, a financial impact for all the airlines that operate 737, not just because of the MAX, but now with these crack things in the wings of the 737NG also. And but you know, the backlog of the aircraft is still like 4,000, almost 5,000 airliners. So I think that at some point in the near future, they're going to figure out a way to fix it, and life continues. And of course, it's opportunity to Boeing to rethink itself and reinvent some stuff there, and become aware of what they did wrong and fix those issues, and come back as strong as they still are. They're still the biggest commercial airline factory in the world, and I think they're going to remain as that. Just this thing, many people say, oh, okay, Boeing's going to bankrupt. No, it's not gonna. I mean, it's much bigger than the 737.
Yeah.
It's much bigger. So and even it's much bigger than the commercial airplanes part of the company. Even Airbus is the same. You know, Airbus doesn't only do the 320, 330. No, they do a lot of stuff. They participate in the spatial program of Europe. They participate in military, a lot of things for military, helicopters, ATR, everything is Airbus also. So, you know, these companies are very, very big. We're talking here about Boeing. It's $100 billion of revenue in 2018. Airbus, 63 billion euros. These things, financially, they are of course, big burden to the factory, but they're not going to end the production.
The financial power of Boeing and Airbus is as much as strong as a power of states, like countries. Let's say this. Don't listen to these people. There's a lot of people who talks in social media that they are not even related to aviation in any which way, and they are saying like, "Oh, Boeing is going to bankrupt. This is going to happen. This is." Please.
No, this is not realistic. This is not realistic at all. Actually, personally, I think they're gonna get out of it much stronger than they are today.
True, because now, if you saw the 777X, for example, they have discovered that pressurization system that they have, and this is gonna enhance. Actually, this is gonna enhance the customers' trust in Boeing, because they're gonna say like, okay, Boeing did this. What is the odds of them doing the same mistake again if they want to keep?
Right, and of course, and specifically in the case of 77X, it's in the test part of the program. So now things have to go wrong. That's why we test the aircraft before it flies. So it's normal stuff, but just because Boeing is in the spotlight, everything that happens becomes a big, mess. But I really think they're gonna go out.
So let's go quickly here. We have 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes, guys. Let's go. If you guys have any other question, please go ahead. We are gonna get here some of the subjects we have. How many years study in the flying? Forever, until we retire.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're gonna die in the process. Okay. let's go in. How to get in both? No.
Pros and cons of both for lifestyle for airline.
So, what's the lifestyle of someone who flies general aviation for a living?
We don't have roster. That's the first thing. We don't have a schedule like okay, I'm gonna be in that place tomorrow. I'm gonna be in that place. No. I make my own roster sometimes, but if I'm flying in my case, sometimes I fly for my boss to some different places. I get a call 3 or 4 days before. Hey, we are flying to that destination, or we are flying to that place. Okay, fine, no problems. It does have an impact in my social life, for sure. If I have plans, I will have to cancel. If I am, for example, sitting with him and I get a call now, hey, you have to go to the airport. Okay, what to do? That's life. And it's pretty much easier life than the airline pilots, because guaranteed every day, almost every day, not except the days I fly internationally, I'm home. I'm in my bed, I'm sleeping, I'm chilling, I'm comfortable. That's all. And social life, it will remain hard even for us as general aviation pilot, because we still have to rest before. People think that flying an airplane is kind of easy, what we do, like monitoring. No. No, I'm sorry. It's not. It's a lot of mental work and a lot of muscle memory playing here, and doing. Sometimes, even when we land the airplane, do you know what you are doing during the landing?
No, it's muscle memory.
It's muscle memory. You just do it.
Thinking.
Yes,
And,
you just do it. The same thing. So you realize after your flight that you're actually tired, just because of that.
Exactly.
So for
and
the
the pressurization also, right?
Yes.
Pressurization, time zones that we cross, flying at night. We fly a lot at night. This doesn't happen much in general aviation, most of it. But I think the airlines is very common to fly overnight. So all these things get, as I would say, a bad side of the airline, downside of being an airline pilot. On the other hand, about the roster, I think it's better because we have, the days off are there, the leaves are there, and we have good bidding system. You get roughly at least half of what you requested, so kind of half of the month you're going to do something you wanted to do, and of course there are flights that nobody wanted to do and you're going to have to do because someone has to do. But I specifically, I like very much the airline style of rostering, especially comparing to people who fly, like, for example, business jets, because these guys are always on standby, and we in the airlines, we have standbys also, but our standbys are much more limited. You know, we have 1 or 2 days of standby per month, and that's it, and that's the only point where you can get a call. Or in the other time, either you have a flight that is already there and you know that you're going to do it, or you don't have anything to do. So I like it better. And social, like what I was saying, well, it's sometimes you're not going to be home when something nice is happening. Sometimes you're going to be in the other side of the world when something bad happens, and sometimes you're going to find a friend somewhere else where you never thought you would find a friend.
Oh,
So,
it happened.
you know, all the goods and bads of living in the airline environment. Talk shortly about what?
How to get into both.
Oh, how to get into
And then we already talked here about the
Alright,
protocol, and
so-
that's it. So we talked shortly about how to get in. The process starts from here, general aviation. So you go ahead, you start your flight school, you graduate with a commercial pilot license or with an ATPL frozen, and then you want to get into the airline. Now we are in difficult times for the aviation industry. Not everybody can get into airline like that. So a lot of people are doing the same thing what I'm doing. However, the difference is I've been doing this for a very long time. A lot of people do it just for a short time until they gather the experience and the hours, and then they jump into the airlines. They apply into the airlines, into an opening position or whatever. Now, the best thing that someone can do is really get into the general aviation first. This will sharpen your knowledge, your hand flying skills, your decision making, and you will get into the right seat, already have some experience, not flying the jets, no, but being in the seat of a decision maker. And you will be able to have much more, what do you think about that?
Airmanship?
Airmanship, for example.
Yeah.
So, and then which is one important advice. For example, you are Brazilian. Where is the best place for you to start working as an airline pilot? The answer is your country. As easy and as simple as that. Don't tell me that, for example, I'm Jordanian, I want to fly for airline or whatever. Don't tell me that you are... Man, start with, before even studying aviation, go to the airline, ask for the requirements, what do you need to study, and if they have any preference on flight schools, go to that flight school. Study, do it,
Yeah.
and then go back to the airline. In this case, people are not going to steal your money, you're not going to waste your time, you're going to be happy, and you might going to be able to join the airline right ASAP.
And the same way that we need a flight plan to fly, it's good to have a plan on your career also.
Yes.
So of course you can adapt that plan, you can update that plan, but try to make your way to where you want to get. You know, choose a realistic goal and go for it. You know, and there is no I would say that there is no certain path. There is no right way of doing it.
Yes.
You know, general aviation, like what I said, is a natural step to get into the airlines, if that's what you want to do, because you can stay forever in general aviation. Many people do it, and many people actually go to the airlines and then go back to the general aviation. So it's really, I mean, try to find what you like, do it the best way you can, and that's it. And I think that's the best advice we can give.
Of course, because a lot of people are asking, how may I be able to be a pilot? How may I become a pilot and whatever? This is like the number one question in all planet Earth.
And now we have Google, man. Back in the days we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't have. We used to like wait 5 minutes for an airplane picture to load in Google image search.
Yeah, right. And we didn't even have high internet, so you had to
Yes.
know someone who already did that. And okay, how do I do that? It's crazy. The other day I was talking to a captain. He started flying in the 80s, and his training was actually in 1981 back in the US. Imagine, and he was Greek. Imagine going that going to the US back then, only with a phone call and everything by mail. You don't have email. It's crazy, right?
So the best advice is, you want to be a pilot? Go and do it. Don't ask around. Don't do whatever, because you will find a lot of people who are gonna frustrate you and gonna push you down and gonna tell you, don't do that, don't do whatever. It's
and don't wait forever, right?
Yes.
To do as quick as you can. I mean, don't still. Okay, I'm still waiting for the right opportunity. No, go for it. Make the opportunity. Right? Okay, guys, our time is actually ending.
Yep.
We would like to thank you very much for this hour that you shared with us. Me and Adai here, we are in this great night here in Doha. And well, Adai, what's your last?
This
message?
is not. I don't know if you will agree with me. For me, this is not going to be the last live that we will go in, even together. We will be, of course.
Please,
please,
you're my neighbor.
Man.
You should
Come on, man. Seriously, you should come with us.
Show up here. We're still here for the next 15 minutes.
So, okay. How about the second one? We should be the three of us. How about that?
Yeah, we can
Airbus,
do it,
Boeing,
yeah.
and General Aviation.
Sure, yeah, of course.
There we go.
Then we're gonna have like 3 different perspectives.
Yeah,
I think that's
definitely.
pretty nice.
So that's the last one. Anyways, enjoy and have a nice evening and sweet dreams, or whatever you want to do. Good afternoon from Doha.
Dream about your next flights
Yes.
and live the dream.